In the heart of the Italian peninsula, between hills and legends, Rome was born. The myth tells of Romulus and Remus, twin brothers raised by a she-wolf, who fought over the city's founding until Romulus killed Remus and named it after himself. But behind this epic tale was a small tribal village surrounded by rivals, the Latins, Etruscans, and Sabines. Its early days were brutal and uncertain, but its location near the Tiber River offered trade, defense, and fertile land. These conditions would help transform the city from obscurity into rising prominence. Rome's early rulers were kings 7 in total who laid the groundwork for its future greatness. They built temples, aqueducts, and walls and established core institutions, but power concentrated in one man's hands became dangerous. The last king, Tarquin the Proud, ruled with cruelty and arrogance, eventually sparking a revolution. In 509 BC, the monarchy was overthrown, and the Roman Republic was born. This marked the first of many reinventions, and it wouldn't be the last. With the fall of the monarchy, Rome stepped into a bold new experiment, the Republic. Instead of kings, 2 consuls were elected to share power and serve short terms, guided by the Senate, a body dominated by the patrician elite. This system was designed to prevent tyranny, but it wasn't democratic in the modern sense. Ordinary citizens, the plebeians, had little real influence. Still, it was a step toward the idea of shared governance, rule of law, and civic duty concepts that would later shape entire civilizations. Yet the Republic was born into conflict. Rome faced constant threats from neighboring tribes and rival city-states. To survive, it became a machine of war, its citizens trained to fight, its economy geared toward conquest. Every war ended with expansion, and every expansion brought new enemies. Over time, Rome developed a near unbeatable military structure, disciplined legions, strategic roads, and a fierce sense of Roman identity. War wasn't just a necessity, it became the Republic's greatest strength and eventual curse. Rome's early military campaigns were focused on unifying the Italian peninsula. It clashed with powerful neighbors like the Etruscans to the north and the Samnites to the south. These wars were brutal and drawn out, but Rome's persistence paid off. It didn't just conquer by force, it offered defeated peoples a place in the Roman system, sometimes granting partial citizenship or local autonomy in exchange for loyalty. This strategy built a vast network of allies, bound not only by fear, but by shared interest in Rome's expansion. By the early 3rd century BC, Rome had become the dominant power in Italy. Its military victories brought wealth, slaves, and territory, but also internal strain. Managing a growing republic required more organization, infrastructure, and control. Roads stretched across the peninsula, linking cities to Rome like spokes to a wheel. Every victory made Rome stronger, but also more complex. The stage was now set for a greater conflict, one that would pit Rome against one of the greatest military powers of the ancient world, Carthage. The Punic Wars were a series of 3 brutal conflicts between Rome and Carthage, fought over control of trade and territory in the western Mediterranean. The First Punic War, 264–241 BC, was mainly naval, with Rome building a fleet from scratch to challenge Carthage's dominance at sea. It ended with a Roman victory, gaining control of Sicily, its first province outside Italy. But this was only the beginning. The Second Punic War would be far bloodier, and it would introduce Rome to its most dangerous enemy. Hannibal Barca, Carthage's legendary general, led a daring invasion of Italy by crossing the Alps with elephants and thousands of troops. For over a decade, he ravaged the Roman countryside, winning battles like Cannae, where Roman legions were slaughtered in the tens of thousands. But Rome refused to surrender. Under the leadership of generals like Scipio Africanus, it adapted, restructured, and struck back, eventually defeating Hannibal at the Battle of Zama in 202 BC. Carthage never fully recovered, and by the end of the Third Punic War, Rome had wiped it from the map. With Carthage destroyed and Greece brought under control, Rome emerged as the supreme power of the Mediterranean world. It expanded rapidly, absorbing territories in Spain, North Africa, and the eastern Mediterranean. Wealth poured into the Republic: gold, slaves, exotic goods, and with it came a transformation. The Roman elite grew richer, building vast estates and using slave labor to dominate agriculture. Meanwhile, small farmers and veterans were pushed into poverty, flooding the cities in search of work and food. The imbalance between rich and poor sparked unrest. Politicians began exploiting the frustrations of the lower classes to gain power. The Senate, once a symbol of Roman virtue, turned into a battlefield of ambition and corruption. Reformers like the Gracchus brothers tried to restore balance by redistributing land and protecting the poor, but both were murdered by political rivals. Rome's institutions, built for a small city-state, were now cracking under the weight of an empire. Violence had become a political tool, and the Republic was losing control. As the Republic weakened, military generals began to fill the power vacuum. Roman armies, once loyal to the Senate, now pledged allegiance to their commanders' men, who promised wealth, land, and glory. One of the first to seize this opportunity was Gaius Marius, a general who reformed the military by allowing the landless poor to enlist. These new soldiers fought not for Rome, but for the man who gave them purpose. Loyalty shifted from the Republic to the individual, setting a dangerous precedent. Soon after, another general, Lucius Cornelius Sulla, marched on Rome itself, something previously unthinkable. He seized power, declared himself dictator, and unleashed purges against his enemies. Though he eventually stepped down, the damage was done. Rome had tasted autocracy. The idea that power could be taken by force was now part of Roman politics. As civil wars erupted and rival factions tore the Republic apart, a new generation of military leaders prepared to claim it all, starting with a man named Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a brilliant general, a cunning politician, and a master of public image. After conquering Gaul in a brutal and ambitious campaign, he returned to Rome with an army loyal only to him. The Senate, fearing his power, ordered him to disband and return alone. Instead, in 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, an act of open rebellion, and marched on Rome. Civil war followed, and Caesar emerged victorious, declaring himself dictator for life. To many Romans, Caesar was a savior who brought order after years of chaos, but to others, he was a tyrant dismantling the Republic. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, a group of senators stabbed him to death in the Senate, hoping to restore the old system. Instead, they plunged Rome into deeper chaos. Caesar's death didn't end dictatorship, it paved the way for even greater autocracy. The Republic was mortally wounded, and Rome's transformation into an empire had become inevitable. After Caesar's assassination, Rome descended into another brutal civil war. His adopted son and political heir Octavian formed a fragile alliance with Mark Antony and Lepidus, known as the Second Triumvirate. Together, they crushed Caesar's assassins, but the alliance soon fractured. Antony allied himself with Cleopatra of Egypt, alarming the Roman Senate. In a decisive showdown at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, Octavian defeated Antony and Cleopatra, solidifying his grip on power. In 27 BC, Octavian was granted the title Augustus, becoming Rome's first emperor in all but name. He kept the appearance of republican institutions but held absolute authority behind the scenes. Under Augustus, Rome entered a period of peace and prosperity known as the Pax Romana. Roads were built, laws reformed, and the empire expanded to its greatest heights. The Republic was dead, but the people, exhausted by war, embraced the stability of empire. Rome had entered a new era. Under Augustus and his successors, the Roman Empire flourished. At its height, it stretched from the deserts of Egypt to the forests of Germany, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Persian Gulf. Roman law, architecture, and culture spread across continents. Cities were connected by an advanced road network. Aqueducts brought fresh water to urban centers, and monumental buildings like the Colosseum symbolized Rome's might. The empire was not just a political entity, it was a civilizing force, at least in its own eyes. Yet beneath the grandeur, tensions simmered. The empire's wealth was unevenly distributed, and its vast borders required constant military attention. Emperors wielded enormous power, and the quality of leadership varied wildly. Some, like Trajan and Hadrian, were capable and wise. Others, like Caligula and Nero, ruled with cruelty and madness. Rome's greatness rested on fragile foundations dependent on strong rulers, obedient armies, and the illusion of eternal dominance. But no empire lasts forever. By the 3rd century AD, the Roman Empire began to fracture. Economic troubles, military overstretch, and political instability weakened the state. Emperors came and went, sometimes multiple in the same year, often murdered by their own troops. Civil wars drained resources, while inflation and heavy taxation crippled the economy. Barbarian tribes at the borders sensed the weakening giant and began to press harder. Rome, once a symbol of invincibility, was now struggling to hold itself together. In an attempt to manage the crisis, Emperor Diocletian divided the empire in two eastern and western, each with its own emperor. Though this brought temporary stability, it also marked the beginning of a deeper divide. The Eastern Empire, with its wealth centered in Byzantium, would grow stronger. The Western Empire, based in Rome, continued to decline. As internal problems multiplied, the once mighty empire no longer expanded, it simply tried to survive. In the 4th and 5th centuries AD, waves of invasions rocked the Western Roman Empire. The Visigoths sacked Rome in 410 AD, a shock to the ancient world. Other tribes followed: Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Huns under the fearsome Attila. Rome's military was overstretched and often filled with mercenaries who held little loyalty. Infrastructure crumbled, cities shrank, and the Western government lost control of its provinces. One by one, regions declared independence or fell to foreign powers. In 476 AD, the last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. No great battle marked the end, just a quiet collapse. What had once been the heart of civilization now lay in ruins, fragmented into barbarian kingdoms. The Roman Senate still existed in name, but the empire it once guided was gone. The Western Roman Empire had fallen, leaving behind roads, ruins, and a legacy that would echo for millennia. Though the Western Empire collapsed, Rome's spirit endured. The Eastern Roman Empire, known as Byzantium, survived for nearly 1,000 more years, preserving Roman law, Greek culture, and Christian theology. Meanwhile, in the West, medieval kingdoms rose from Rome's ashes, many claiming its legacy as their own. Latin became the foundation of Romance languages. Roman law influenced legal systems worldwide, and the idea of a republic inspired future revolutions centuries later. Rome had fallen, but it had also planted seeds in every corner of the Western world. Even today, echoes of Rome remain. In architecture, politics, religion, and language, the empire's influence is inescapable. Its rise and fall became a blueprint, a warning, and an inspiration for future civilizations. Rome taught the world how to build, how to govern, how to conquer, and how to fall. Its history is not just the story of an empire, but a mirror reflecting the ambitions, flaws, and fate of all great powers. Rome never truly died, it became legend.